Good morning, everybody, and delighted to welcome you all to this morning's call, together with representatives from the British Japan Chamber of Commerce, from the Sheffield, South Yorkshire Chamber of Commerce, and businesses from Japan and the north of England. Really delighted. That was a wonderful introductory video, but for those of you that don't know, please be assured that it's not nighttime in Tokyo right now. Those wonderful evening shots shown, it is actually late afternoon in Tokyo right now, and so delighted that across the time difference we're able to work together in this virtual environment. I'm James Ramsbotham, and I'm Chief Executive of the North East England Chamber of Commerce. And as many of you will know, we've probably got the greatest cluster of Japanese investments in the UK here in the Northeast. The largest of which, of course, is Nissan, who 30 plus years ago saw the tremendous strategic advantage of building a brand new car plant very, very close to a port on the east side of the United Kingdom, facing across the North Sea to the market that they really wanted to capture. And indeed, to which 80% of the vehicles made in the Sunderland plant are currently sent. It's obviously implied within that huge concerns over the impact of Brexit, and we spend a great deal of time with Nissan discussing just how we can try and combat the various threats from that. But subsequent investments across the whole of the automotive supply chain, and indeed into wider industry sectors. And then 10 years ago, the decision by Hitachi to build the train plant here at Newton Aycliffe, close to Darlington, the site of the first ever passenger train anywhere in the world. And that historic link, which will be celebrated 200 years old in 4 years' time, it was particularly relevant to the Japanese culture of train building, which of course they lead now globally. But as a result of that, we certainly in the Northeast have built extremely strong links in both directions. And I've taken trade missions to Osaka and to Tokyo. We've got a particularly strong MOU with the Chamber of Commerce in Osaka, but I'm also regularly in Tokyo visiting Nissan, Hitachi, Fantech, and various other significant Japanese corporate headquarters. So delighted to be taking part in this today. And it's particularly timely because only 2 weeks ago, I was asked to appear in front of a House of Lords select committee looking at what the impacts would be of the proposed free trade agreement between the UK and Japan. I have to say that one of the key things that we stated very strongly is that that trade agreement on its own is insufficient without a very, very strong agreement with Europe as well. And actually, we desperately need that strong triangulation of a deal between the UK, Japan, and the EU to make it work. But that said, we have very, very close trading relationships, very close bonds. We work very, very closely together on so many things. And we should look forwards to making the very best of the free trade agreement, which of course is yet to be fully signed. It's more of a statement of intent at this stage, but it's a really important first step. And the goodwill encapsulated in that is so important and so useful for so many of our businesses in so many ways. So I hope that this webinar really helps other people potentially to take the first step, but cements bonds and links for other people. And I look forward to a really, really good discussion between many and furthering the close bonds that we have with each other. I'm not going to start off by introducing everybody because I think it's easier if we introduce people in turn. So I would like now to introduce Nick from Sheffield, who has done so much to help make this particular webinar this morning happen. He can introduce himself and then he will pass on to others. So Nick, over to you.
Thank you very much, James. Well, first of all, I would like to welcome everybody to this webinar today. It's exciting to be talking and looking at opportunities in Japan for UK businesses, particularly, as James has said, the free trade agreement, which is which is great. So in South Yorkshire, we have a lot of manufacturing businesses, but we don't have quite the same interaction with Japan directly because of the investment that is in the northeast of England. But nevertheless, it is a very important market for South Yorkshire businesses for exports. Now, I would just like to say a very quick word for those who don't know about the British Chambers of Commerce Global Business Network. We actually have agreements with 50 British Chambers of Commerce overseas, stretching from Chile, stretching from actually every continent in Africa, and the power of the Global Business Network is fantastic. I refer to the global network as our people on the ground. And if a company comes to me wanting to develop business in Japan, for example, or any of the other countries where we are represented, then I can introduce them to people in Japan, to the British Chambers of Commerce in Japan, and I know that they will get first-class personal on-the-ground help. So it's a very important aid to British business and British exports, and I would like everybody to be absolutely aware of the power of the British Chambers of Commerce Global Business Network. I'm still letting people into the room, with a lot of people coming in, so I'm doing that as I'm speaking. But I would just like to say, we are recording this. We have been asked by a number of people who wanted to join in on this webinar but can't. They did request that we recorded it, so we are doing so. Enough from me. I'm now going to hand over to Graham Davis, who is from the British Chambers of Commerce in Japan. And Graham will just introduce two speakers today. If I can just say that we are going to have questions and answers at the end of this webinar. If you would like to ask a question, please use the chat button and type your answer. Or if you're feeling a bit brave and you want to come on and speak, put your hand up and we'll call you out. And for anybody who does have questions, if we run out of time, if you do have questions and we don't quite get to you, we will answer them offline by email. Okay, so I'm going to hand over to Graham. Graham, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Graham Davis from the British Chamber of Commerce in Japan, where I'm senior advisor this year. British Chamber of Commerce is very much the feet on the ground, and hopefully soon will be part of the Global Business Network that we've just been talking about. We've got about 200 members of all sizes, mostly British companies, the very big ones, the GlaxoSmithKlines and AstraZenecas, the big financial institutions, and a whole host of entrepreneurs and SMEs and medium-sized corporates, really representing the best of British business. And a lot of companies who've been seriously invested in Japan for an awfully long time, and also a lot of companies still coming in to this market. Delighted to have this opportunity to take part and to introduce us, hopefully as a major part of your journey into doing business in Japan. It's a huge market. There's lots of opportunity. I was very active a few years ago in talking about the Rugby World Cup and the Olympics and the business opportunities that they represented. Japan is still such a major opportunity, I think, for British companies. And I heartily applaud this initiative by Sheffield Chamber of Commerce. COVID and Brexit notwithstanding, there are still huge opportunities for good products and good companies to enter this market. I've long had the feeling that Japan has invested massively in the UK. We've heard about the success stories in the Northeast. Sheffield actually has a world-class Japanese Japanese studies department at its university. I've also had the feeling perhaps that the UK is perhaps a little bit underinvested in Japan. has rushed headlong into China and should be doing a little bit more in Japan. So hopefully this webinar today can be a part of putting that right. That's enough from me. I'm going to hand over to an old friend of ours from Export to Japan and Business Link Japan, Steve Crane, who will talk a lot more in detail about the opportunities in Japan and some of the opportunities here and some of the things you need to know about market access. So Steve, over to you.
Thank you very much, Graham. That was a wonderful introduction. Thank you. And good morning, everybody who is listening in the UK. Good afternoon to anyone that's listening in Japan. And hello if you're anywhere else in the world. I'm Steve Crane from Business Link Japan and Export to Japan, and delighted to be involved in this webinar today. During my session, there's a number of things that I'd like to just take you through. I'll do a brief introduction, and then I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about some of the data on trade between the UK and Japan, just to paint the picture of what kind of activity is going on between the two countries. I will then move on to share a few tips and thoughts with you from my years of doing experience in Japan. And then I'll wrap up by giving you a few pointers on where you can go to get more information and more help if you do decide to go ahead with your venture into the Japanese market. So let me just see if I can share some slides with you. Hopefully that is sharing my screen. I think one of my colleagues will give me a shout if it's not sharing, so everyone looks happy. So I'm presuming everybody can see it. So if I kick off with this slide by way of an introduction. So my personal journey into Japan started in year 2000 when I was working for a UK company that wanted to open an office in the Japanese market. And at that time, I was very much in the position that maybe a number of you good people listening in on this webinar, the position you're in now, where you may be thinking about, is the Japanese market right for me? Should I go for it? What are the challenges around it? Is it worth it? What strategy, what market entry strategy should I go for? I was very much in that position working with this UK company. And we did our research and we decided that we would go in quite a serious way and go over and open an office in Japan. And I volunteered to go and do that. So you can see me up on the top right-hand side of this picture above the whiteboard, looking very excited and looking 20 years younger back in those days. And one of the reasons for sharing this slide with you, it's obviously a nostalgic moment for me, but much more importantly than that, you can see that in our first year of doing business in Japan, this picture was taken at the end of our first 12-month period. We had set up an office there. These were the first initial 8 people that I'd employed to join us in Japan. And most importantly, we'd hit $800,000 of sales revenue from a zero start from opening our operation. And a lot of people quite rightly get the message that it does take time in Japan, and it is a market where you have to have a long-term view. And I will certainly talk more about that during this presentation. But I also just want to share this to show that there are examples that if you manage to get a few things right, and if you've got the right product or service, and you do your homework and you do your research, you can make an impact very quickly as a foreign company in the Japanese market. Since year 2000, over these last 20 years, I've now gone on to establish several other companies in Japan. These are either companies that I've set up myself, further companies that I've set up and invested in and I run out in Japan, but also as part of our business model at Business Link Japan, we help other international companies enter the market as well. So I've been involved in helping in excess of 70 companies, mainly from the UK, but also some from other parts of Europe and the US enter the Japanese market. We've generated in total over £100 million of sales revenue out of the Japanese market in that time. I've hired over 40 Japanese people, either to work in the operations that I'm involved in or with some of our partner companies that we work in. And as I mentioned, in total, we've worked with over 70 companies. Let me just see if I can move that on. Okay, during that time, I'm absolutely delighted to have been recognized for the work I've done. And I particularly wanted to put this slide up because this relates to the British Chamber of Commerce in Japan and one of our sort of co-hosts on this webinar today. And the Chamber hold annually their business awards. And I've been, delighted and honored to have been recognized in those business awards over the last 20 years. So for innovation, for entrepreneurship, and as Person of the Year as well. So if we now move on to ask ourselves the question of why Japan, and this might be one of the questions that you may be asking yourselves right now. You might be sitting there thinking, is it a market I should go for? Why should I go for it? And as I said, I was certainly in that position a number of years ago. And one of the key pieces of data that I came across that really helped convince me that we should go for Japan and we should go for it in a big way was this slide that I want to share with you now. Now, if I can just take you through this, if we, first of all, to put it in context, this slide is comparing the GDP of Japanese regions with individual countries. And if we start, if you imagine it as a clock face, if we start at sort of 3 o'clock and we look there at the Tokyo Metropolitan Regional Area, and the GDP there is actually larger than the entire GDP of Canada. It's considerably larger than the GDP of India. And in fact, it's also larger than the GDP of Russia. That is one region. The Tokyo Metropolitan Region has got a GDP larger than those countries. If we move around anti-clockwise, the Hokkaido region at the top has got a larger GDP than Singapore. The Tohoku region has a GDP almost the same as Austria. The Osaka region has a GDP almost the same size as the Netherlands. Chukoku region is similar to Thailand. Kyushu down the bottom has a GDP almost the same size as Switzerland. That's one region of Japan with a GDP equivalent to the size of Switzerland. Shikoku has a GDP similar to New Zealand, and the Chubu region also is similar to the Netherlands. And when I first saw this data and really started to get my head around that, it really put it into a context that I could sort of identify with and understand about the size of the opportunity in the Japanese market. And remember, this is one country that is similar. It's an island, as you can see from the diagram, an island that's similar in geographic size to the UK, but has twice the population, 127 million, I think is the latest figure. And it's certainly a country that is, punching well above its weight in terms of GDP and some of the economic forecasts. A second strong reason why you should consider Japan, and James has already referred to this a little earlier, is obviously the FTA free trade agreement that has been recently signed on September the 11th. This is a little snapshot of an article that's actually on the BCCJ website. And if you want more information, it was written by Sam from the BCCJ, a very comprehensive article. If you want more information on the FTA, I would urge you to have a look at this particular page on the Chamber website and some of the links that go from it. And also through the Export to Japan platform, we will indeed very shortly be doing a dedicated webinar on the FTA. So for those of you that are particularly interested in drilling down and understanding more of the detail, certainly register for that webinar when it comes up and have a look at this particular page on the BCCJ website. Now, to try and put it into context, on one side of the scale, when we look at the Japanese market, I graphically demonstrated to you the sort of size of the opportunity there. And bear in mind that we are dealing with a country that speaks one language, generally has one culture, one business culture and one business practice. It's one huge, very lucrative market, the third largest market in the world after China and the US. It has one business practice, one sort of, once you learn the business practice, it's a fairly standard business practice across the entire country. One distribution network. Of course, it's a very complex distribution network. It's not as simple as I say there, but the point I'm making is, once you get into the market and you understand for your particular product or service, you understand how the distribution network would suit you, then it is one network that would cover that entire country. It's also a very stable country with extremely good business ethics. So they're all the reasons for me why I identified this as a market I really wanted to work with. Of course, I wouldn't be doing my job properly if I just painted a very rosy picture. So I have to give you a balanced view on it. And the balanced view is that it is an incredibly complex market to get into and quite a challenging one to understand. And it does take time, and it requires that long-term investment that I referred to a little bit earlier. So, you really need to, for sort of first-time exporters that are considering the Japanese market, you really need to weigh these 2 points up and work out strategically whether you feel, A, whether you feel it's worth it for you to go for the market, and B, whether you can, invest in overcoming some of these challenges that you need to overcome in order to be successful. And I'll talk a little bit more about some tips and thoughts on that further in the presentation. So just to start to share some data with you to paint the picture a little bit more. So total trade in goods with Japan, between Japan and the UK, is just a whisker over £30 billion a year. And you'll note at the bottom, by the way, I should obviously make this point. This data is the 4 quarters up to the end of Q1 2020. And of course, that is just coming into the period when we all know about what happened with COVID and the economic impact. So this data is pre that impact. And of course, there will be a change on this data once everything starts to filter through. But let's just keep it with the data I've got at the moment, which is up to that period. So total trading goods, 30.3 billion. UK exports to Japan are at 14.8 billion. And I put a little note there that was an increase on the same 12 months from the previous 12 months. It was an increase of 25 million. So quite a significant jump we achieved over that 12-month period. And UK imports from Japan are 15.5 billion. When I first started to understand this data, I personally was a little surprised. I thought we might import considerably more from Japan than we exported. But actually, as you can see, it's not far off of a 50-50 balance in terms of export and import between the UK and Japan. Japan was the 11th largest export market for the UK in 2019-20. And in terms of the split of UK exports, I know from the audience here today, there's a number of companies that are selling product and goods and some companies selling services. So I wanted to drill down and share this data. So it was 47% goods and 53% services that we exported to Japan. If we start to look at what goods or what products are exported to Japan, up the top there, 1.1 billion is mechanical power generators, closely followed by cars. The next one is medicinal and pharmaceutical products at 630 million per year. Non-ferrous metals, scientific instruments, miscellaneous electrical goods at 190 million, specialized machinery, and then road vehicles other than cars. They're the very high level product groups of what we export to Japan. If we look at that in terms of services, from the UK, we are exceptionally good at exporting our financial services to Japan, coming in at 4.1 billion. And that really dwarfs most of the other ones. It's a very high percentage of the services market is financial related. So many opportunities for companies in the financial services sector, if any of you are tuning into the webinar today. Other business services comes in at just under 1.2 billion, travel at 400 million, telecoms, computer and IS services, 400 million, insurance and pensions, intellectual property, and then transportation at just under 350 million. Another interesting piece of data just to share with you, in 2018, there were just under 10,000 UK VAT registered businesses exporting goods to Japan. So if you're there thinking about it at an early stage, there are just under 10,000 other UK companies that have taken the leap and are already successfully exporting to Japan. To put that in an interesting context, I did a quick Google just before the webinar, and there's actually currently 2.5 million UK VAT registered companies. And so I think that's an interesting bit of data just to think about too, because the 9,500 UK companies as a percentage of the 2.5 million, of course, is not a lot at all. It's very small. So what that really tells me is that it's not for everybody, you know. You need to take care, you need to do your research, you need to be sure you've got the right strategy. But you can see that those companies that are doing it, the 10,000 are doing it, are certainly generating significant revenue. And again, I'll touch on some of the thoughts around that further in the presentation. Also, this is an important one to share with you. This is World Bank data. So in 2019, Japan was ranked 29th for its ease of doing business. And that's, you know, that's a fair way down the list. And it's very fair to say that if you look at a list of companies that are countries that are easy to do business with, right through to the ones that are more difficult to do business with, Japan is certainly not at the top. And I'm sure you're not surprised to hear that. There are a number of challenges around doing business in Japan. Of course, there is a completely different language over there, a very different business culture over there. It's a long way geographically and time zone wise. So there are, you know, a number of reasons why it's challenging. But an interesting little point I put there, though, that was actually 10 places better than in 2018. And I think that's actually a reflection of the good work that the Japanese government are doing. And I think we'll hear a little bit about that in the next presentation. But there's some great work that the Japanese government are doing to attract international companies to come into the market and to make it easier to do business there. And that's certainly reflected in that 10-place improvement between 2018 and 2019. I thought I would just share this with you as well, because I know that there are a number of different sectors and products being represented in the audience today. So this is a slide that just shows the goods imported from the world by Japan. So this is not the goods that they're importing from the UK. This is the top 10 product list from around the world. So this is basically what Japan likes to import. So again, if you're in any of these sectors by any chance, then there's certainly opportunity for you. So very briefly, I mean, you can read it for yourself and have a copy of it later, but at the top there, minerals, fuels or oils, electrical machinery, machinery and mechanical appliances, optical, photographic, cinematographic and medical equipment. I've got my wrong teeth in there. Pharmaceutical products, vehicles other than railway or tramway stock, ores, slag and ash, plastics, organic chemicals, and at number 10, articles of apparel and clothing not knitted. And again, I believe that there's one or two companies that fit those sectors on the webinar today. If we look at the same thing with services, the top services, so intellectual property is a big one for Japan, the use of intellectual property. And I certainly work with quite a number of UK companies that are licensing intellectual property to Japanese companies. We're working with a couple of companies in Newcastle right now that are doing extremely well in this sort of area in Japan, generating very good business. Other business services, travel, transport and financial services are all big on the import list of services imported into Japan. Okay, if I move on now to some of the key learning points, you know, I hope that's painted a little bit of a picture of the overall trade between UK and Japan and where the opportunities are. So let's move on to a few thoughts to share with you as you're thinking about your journey into Japan. Oh, sorry, but I've got a fire alarm in the office in the background. That was just a test. Good. Okay. So the first thing to really note here is that the business culture in Japan is just so incredibly different. This was the first thing that dawned on me 20 years ago when I started doing business out in Japan. And what I've learned over the years, the most important thing with this, and as you take your journey into Japan, the best advice I can give you is to learn, accept and embrace. You know, very much take the view that you cannot stop the river flowing. Don't try and stop the river flowing. And I see it with many of the different companies we work with that we take into Japan and many of the executives we work with, the majority do put the effort and the time into learning the business culture and accepting that that's the way it works. There's no right, there's no wrong, it's just different, and embracing it and working out how they can work with it. The small minority of people that just can't do that, that think that the Western way is the right way and the Japanese business culture is all wrong. If you go with that mindset, it's highly likely you will fail. So take the view of taking time to learn, to accept, and to embrace the culture out there. And there are plenty of ways that you can learn a lot more about it. There are some great agencies out there that a number of them are sort of UK based or have UK interests that specialize in giving training modules and can come in and teach you or do things online with you. Some amazing companies out there. If any of you are interested, I could certainly connect you up and introduce some of those companies, and we have some of them on the Export to Japan platform. So it's easy to get the help. There's a lot of good stuff online. And I won't, for the purpose of this webinar, I can't dive into the detail on this, but just to give you some ideas of the kind of stuff I'm talking about, the whole decision-making process in Japan is completely different to the UK. It's very consensus-based. It takes time. It's a very risk-averse culture. There's a lot of talk going on before any decisions are made. There's lots of information exchanged, and it can appear a little bit frustrating to us Westerners. We're used to sort of moving quicker and what we feel is making decisions quicker, but it takes much longer to do that bit in Japan. But the flip side of it is that the implementation, when they say go and we're ready to go, the implementation tends to be extremely fast because everything has been discussed and worked through, and any problems have been ironed out in advance. Things like timekeeping are crucially important, not only the start time of meetings, but the finish time of meetings. Having very clear agendas is so important. Teamwork, not standing out as an individual. Details about when we can all travel again and we can get to do our business trips over to foreign markets like Japan. When you get over there, the way you meet people, the way you exchange your business card, the way you handle a business card, the seating plans, the way you sit in meetings, there are all things to learn, very, very helpful things that you can learn about getting this stuff right. Thinking about seniority and having respect for seniority are all important factors in business and in life in Japan. And the whole view around harmony and how to create harmony and avoid any challenges or disagreements or anything like that. They're all really important points about learning about the business culture in Japan. The second thing I would share is research, and doing your homework and your research is just crucially important. And we find a lot of the work we have to do at Business Link Japan is when foreign companies come to us and they invariably have got into some business in Japan. They may have signed up with a distributor or an agent out there without really researching properly. They may have met the agent at a trade show in the UK or something like that. And they've gone through a bit of a honeymoon period where everything feels and looks right, but then they somehow hit a bit of a wall and a bit of a plateau, and they don't know why, and they can't work out why. And people often approach us and say, we think we've signed up with the wrong agent or the wrong distributor. Can you help us unpick it? And it is a really, really difficult thing to do in Japan. It's a very tough thing. If you make those kind of mistakes, it's hard to backtrack on it, and it takes time, and it can be a little bit of a painful process. So it's much better to avoid making those mistakes from the start and to get your strategy right and to get your tactics right. And that involves doing research. Again, there are great agencies out there. There are specialist agencies out there that I can introduce you to that do specialize in doing research, and they do an amazing job. So do your research, do your homework. Organizations like DIT can help with that too, and I shall come on to that shortly as well. But time and effort and a little bit of budget invested in research will pay you dividends further down the line. The next thing to understand with Japan, and this is the same the world over, of course, and the same in business wherever we are, but in Japan, it's really important to understand the importance of building relationships. Relationship building, human relationship building is crucial and so valuable. And again, time spent and time invested in building relationships, getting to know people can just pay dividends many times over the years. Going back to my first venture into Japan 20 years ago, some of the network of people that I made back in those times are still extremely strong connections. We've become friends as well as business acquaintances. We still do business together. We still help each other. I look for opportunities to help them. They look for opportunities to help me. And that human relationship and human network is such a crucial asset in Japan. And we should never underestimate the value of putting time into doing that. And if you're serious about the Japanese market, I would certainly recommend that you put time into identifying and building relationships with the key people that you will need to get to know to build business. The next one is referring to quality, and quality in Japan is absolutely everything. I've put a quote up there that I picked up from a Japanese colleague, which has always stayed with me. Japanese people have high expectations of quality, which matters more than price. And I would just take a moment yourselves to digest that and let that sink in with you, because I think it's a very powerful statement, and it's one to learn about. And of course, it has its benefits. If you get your head around that and you really understand it, the point I'm making is, by being high quality, not only in your product and your service and your sort of packaging and the way you present it and the way you deliver it, but also in you as an individual and your company and your customer service levels, make everything the highest possible quality. And that is a very good way to win over the Japanese prospects and start doing business with them, and also can put you in a strong position in terms of your price point, because often Japanese consumers will accept that they do pay a higher price for high quality items. They associate higher prices and high quality together. So there is scope to make good margins if you've got the right product that is the right kind of quality. So quality is everything, and make sure your organization eats and breathes quality in what you do. The next one is hard selling absolutely does not work. So, you know, if you've been on any of the sales courses over here in the UK that teach you all about, you know, closing the sale and how to move things along and get things done, you know, it's great stuff, and I'm not knocking any of that. It's all valuable knowledge to have, but put it through a huge filter before you start approaching the Japanese market, because hard selling out there absolutely doesn't work, and often backfires. Actually, I've seen companies make terrible mistakes by putting Japanese prospects under uncomfortable pressure and then completely kind of losing the business and the relationship as a result of it. I share that, another quote that I picked up along the way that has always stayed with me. The defining values are not price and profit, but they are relationships and trust. And again, you know, take a moment to digest that and think about that as you work out your plan for the Japanese market. Some of the tips I would give on this is, you know, very much learn about your prospects and the companies first, and think about the business you will do secondary, and take a very kind of gentle approach, showing how your product really benefits them, and focus on the benefits for them rather than, you know, what's so good about your product from your perspective. They're the important things to think about. The next thing is customer service is king. And again, you know, this sounds like common sense stuff, but I do have to put it in here because so many foreign companies underestimate the level of customer service in Japan. And I always use a kind of an analogy here. For those of you that have been lucky enough to make a trip out to Japan, either on business or for pleasure, you will see the level of customer service from the moment you arrive at the airport, with the way your baggage is handled, through to the way you catch the limousine bus and the way everyone bows to you, and the way everything's so clean and so punctual and people are so polite, and the customer service is amazing. And I've had business people that we've taken over that when they first arrive in Japan on the first day, it's a mind-blowing thing for them, and they love it. They say, this is incredible. You know, the customer service level, the way everybody treats you in the customer service sector is amazing. And it is, and it's great that people pick up on that. But I always then give them a little sobering thought, which is that customer service level that we experience and we enjoy so much in Japan, that's actually the norm in Japan. That's not exceptional. That's what everyday customer service levels are like. And for us as foreign companies trying to do business in Japan, we have to remember that, and we have to try and at least match that customer service level, because that's what the expectation is. And so putting effort into making sure that you reach that customer service level, and indeed, if you can exceed it, If you really want to make business, make sure your service level is even higher. And that's the way you'll really impress your Japanese prospects and customers and really drive your business. So customer service is king in Japan, and orientate you and your company around that in order to win business. A couple more points to share with you. This was a bit of a theme, but you absolutely have to approach the market with a long-term investment mindset. It's not the kind of market where you can dive in, expect to get results and make money quickly, and then, you know, cut and run or whatever. You really do have to have a long-term view on Japan and be prepared to invest long-term and to think long-term. And the trade-off for that initial hard work of longer-term investment is the returns that you will get are long-term also. It's the kind of market that takes time to get into, and the relationships take time to build. But once they're built and stable, the return comes over a very long period of time. It's not a market that chops and changes its mind quickly. So again, going back to the company that I first started 20 years ago, we are still selling those software products to the same customers in Japan 20 years later. They've stayed loyal to us, they stick with us, we still generate revenue, and it's obviously quite a cash cow now, that business, and we're doing very well out of it because we put a lot of effort in initially up front. So have that long-term investment. Do not approach the Japanese market at all with a short-term mindset. Take great care about selecting either your partner, your representative, or your employees. I touched on this a little bit earlier when I mentioned that it's very difficult to unpick things if you make a mistake. So do your research, take care, get these things right. Employing people in Japan, if you go that far to set up some form of operation or work out how to employ someone out there, you need to get it right, because it's not a hire and fire culture. You can't hire somebody and give it a year or so and see if it works out, and then if it doesn't work out, kind of let them go. There's not that sort of Western US driven mentality. It's much more of a long-term, secure kind of relationship you have with your partners and your representatives and your employees. So do your research, do your homework, and take care about making sure you get that right. And then coming to sort of conclusion points now, put down local roots in the Japanese market and demonstrate your commitment. This is one of the other things that your Japanese customers and prospects will look at before they consider buying from you. Are you serious about the market? Have you got some form of, local roots there? It depends on your business model, of course, and what your strategy is, but there are various ways to put down local roots. And again, I can give you advice on this when I come up to talking about future steps of what you can do. But you need to demonstrate that commitment. It's something that Japanese customers look for and value when they're considering doing business with foreign companies. Okay, moving on to the sort of concluding part of the slide. I'm keeping one eye on the time, so I'm going through fairly quickly now. But where can you go now for further resources? So I hope the data I shared with you has given you a bit of an insight into the size of the opportunity, but also some of the challenges around it. And I hope some of those little thoughts I've just given you about the things you need to really consider and some of the tips to get things right, I hope they've been valuable. If you're at a point now where you're thinking, well, yes, this is all interesting, but I want more detail and I need more help, then I'll share a few thoughts with you on that now. So if you haven't been there so far, I would absolutely urge you to go and have a look after this webinar, go and have a look at this digital platform. It's called Export to Japan, and the URL is exporttojapan.co.uk. It's an online digital platform. It was actually established in 2013 by DIT. It was back when it was, at that time it was known as UKTI. And UKTI set this platform up, got the seed funding to get it going. It was done through the British Embassy in Tokyo, and the British Chamber of Commerce were one of the key strategic partners at that time in getting it going. It was done with the Chamber, with DIT, with Business Link Japan, and actually British Airways were one of the key partners in those early days as well. In 2015, my organization, Business Link Japan, we actually acquired this platform from DIT. There was a strategic move to take it out of government ownership and into the private sector. So we now run Export to Japan. It's run as a not-for-profit, so any revenue that it generates gets pumped back into to developing the platform. And as I've put there, it's free access. It's completely free for you users, free access to resources, suppliers, case studies, events, webinars, missions, and information. There's a great case study that for our friends from the Northeast that are here today, there's a great case study on a Newcastle-based company called Zytronic that are having amazing success in Japan, a great company just outside Newcastle that are punching well above their weight in Japan, and you can go and read that case study of how they've done it. And as I said, there are webinars, I think there are something like 100 on-demand videos that you can go and have a look at, as well as a partner program on there. So this is a great place for getting additional resources and additional help. There are now 11,000 members. So when you go to the platform, you can sign up and become a member. It's free of charge and a very simple thing to do. But by becoming a member, you do get locked into the higher value content. You get access to additional content, and you get on the mailing list for upcoming webinars and events and things. So for example, I mentioned we'll be doing one on the FTA very shortly, and you'll be notified of that and other upcoming webinars. And so far, it's had over 500,000 visitors to this website to date. Very briefly, you'll be able to work this out when you go to the platform, but just by way of introduction, there are 4 key ways that you can navigate into the website. The first one is a tab that says search by industry, and that is designed for you to be able to go and look at all the information on the site that relates to your specific industry. So if you're in the food and drink business, for example, on the search by industry page, there is a tab that says food and drink. You can click on that and all the content will come up about food and drink. So one way to navigate in is to find the information by your industry. The second way is a step-by-step guide, and that's designed to give you information on whatever part of the journey you are on. So if you're looking to set up a company in Japan and incorporate, if you're looking to get some marketing help, if you're looking to get research help, if you're looking to recruit somebody, through the step-by-step guide, you can click through and find specific help on whatever part of the journey that you happen to be on with your entry into the Japanese market. There's then a partner program. So I mentioned a few times that there are other organizations out there that you can navigate through to that provide specialist help. So we have a list of partners that provide those services, and you can look at the details of those partners. And if they catch your eye, then by all means, reach out and contact those partners. And there are other partners, if there's specific help you need, but you don't see a partner listed there, then by all means contact us and let us know, because we have knowledge of other partners that we can introduce you to that provide specific services as well. So the partner program is a big part of it. And then finally, all over the site, there are points where you can click buttons to send your inquiry. So if there is a specific question you have or specific help you want, send your inquiry into us, detail it in the inquiry, and we will deal with that and get back to you. What actually happens with those inquiries is they are filtered by our team here in the UK, but the team here are working out where is the best place for that inquiry to be answered, and a high proportion of them get passed through to the trade team at the DIT, at the embassy in Tokyo and the consulate in Osaka. So the specialist trade teams out there get their inquiries through the Export to Japan platform. So if that's the right route for it, we will pass you through to the right person and introduce the right person to you in Japan. So I would urge you to certainly go to Export to Japan, become a member, have a good look through there, send us in any inquiries that you may have there. I'll also just highlight a little bit more about Business Link Japan and what we do there. So Business Link Japan is an organization that helps primarily UK companies to really do deep business activity in Japan. So this is much more of an on-the-ground service where we have Japanese members going out working on behalf of UK companies to build their business and grow their business in the Japanese market. So Zytronic from Newcastle that I mentioned a little earlier is one of the companies. Business Link Japan's been working with them since 2015 and growing their business on the ground in Japan. Another company that we worked with for a number of years is Walker Filtration to help them grow their business in the Japanese market. That was another very successful case study from the Northeast region. And there are companies from the Sheffield area as well that have also been supported. But this one is much more for companies that have a very kind of serious strategy about Japan and really need help on the ground with sales activity, business development activity, marketing activity. That can be dealt with through the Business Link Japan model. There is an incubation center in Tokyo that's run. So there are a number of UK companies that have their Japan office and location in the incubator center. So they have a phone number, they have an address there. Sometimes they have their own team member based there. Sometimes it's our team members. But if it's part of your strategy to have a presence in Japan, that can be done through the incubation center. And Business Link Japan is an export to Japan and DIT strategic partner. Okay, looking at the time, I think that's about the amount of time that I've got, so I'll leave it there. I hope that's been useful to everybody as a little insight and an introduction and some few thoughts on where you can go for the next stage of help. I'll be around to answer any questions if anyone's got it, but I'll now stop sharing the screen, and I think I hand over to Hannah now to take over the next stage. So over to you. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Okay, I'm gonna share my screen too. All right. Okay, thank you so much, Steve, for a wonderful and insightful presentation. So from now, I'm gonna give you a small presentation. So hi again, everyone. My name is Hanai Ueksa from Persona. So today, I'm going to talk about the Tokyo Metropolitan Government program called TMG's support program. It will be a short presentation, but I hope it will be beneficial for you. So the screen that I'm showing is today's agenda. So first, I'm going to briefly explain the Invest Tokyo program, which the Tokyo Metropolitan Government launched in 2011. Then I will introduce the support programs which you can take advantage of while you're living in the UK. Lastly, I will give you information on how to use TMG's free support services. Okay. So first, let me again briefly introduce myself. I'm Hanai Ueksa. I currently work with the Invest in Japan support team at Persona in the global division. Our team manages business support service centers for foreign companies that are commissioned by the Tokyo Metropolitan Government. I cover public relations, and so today I'm here to introduce our services. All right, let's move on to the content of today's presentation. So first, what is Invest Tokyo? So Tokyo has been designated by the national government as a national strategic special zone in order to form an international business base and to build the most business-friendly environment in the world. The Tokyo Metropolitan Government is strongly promoting a variety of measures to support Japanese and foreign companies, startups, and entrepreneurs. So with that vision, the Tokyo Metropolitan Government launched a project called Asian Headquarters Special Zone Plan in 2011. As you can see in the chart, in the phase number 1, the Tokyo Metropolitan Government successfully attracted 80 headquarters and R&D centers in Tokyo. So we are currently in the phase number 2, where we try to attract more than 400 foreign companies. Next, I'm going to introduce TMG, Tokyo Metropolitan Government Supporting Services. So the BDCT, we call it a Business Development Center Tokyo, is the TMG's comprehensive service for foreign companies who are considering establishing in or expanding to Tokyo. I have summarized 5 features of BDCT. First, it is a supporting desk where English is available for any foreign companies. Second, the service is free of charge and you can use as many times as you would like. Third, we offer a total support package that covers all aspects from business to lifestyle issues. Lastly, at BDCT, there is a financial desk consultant specifically to assist financial companies. So now let's look at what kinds of support we can provide. At BDCT, Our bilingual consultants who possess a wealth of international experience are on hand to offer face-to-face and online consultations. The support extends from before the establishment of business to after your business expansion to Tokyo. Not only do we introduce experts such as lawyers and administrative scriveners, you can also receive practical advice on administrative matters such as how to prepare and present documents, including applications. Support for completing the necessary procedures for the fundraising is also available. And as I mentioned earlier, support for foreign financial companies is available. We are aware that financial companies require special attention regarding starting a business in a Japanese financial field. Consultants provide advice on Japan's financial rules, regulations, and acquisitions of financial licenses. We also support completing administrative procedures in the joint consultation service with the Financial Service Agency. In addition to business support, we also offer general day-to-day living assistance. We can help guide you through administrative procedures as well as introduce hospitals with multilingual staff and international schools, etc. And another popular service of Tokyo Metropolitan Government are our online seminars. So we're hosting startup business seminars several times per month. The topics cover basic information such as how to start a business in Tokyo or how to register a company. And visa-related topics such as how to apply for a business manager visa and information on funds are also popular among foreign startups. Since we have been hosting seminars online using Zoom like this, it is possible to participate from overseas, and I would love to recommend this to you if you're interested. The next seminar we're hosting will be on October 6th from 10:30 to 12:30 a.m. British time. The title is Build Sales Plans and Find Customers, given by an SME consultant. It's free to participate, so please take a look at the details if you're interested. Also, one more seminar information. Another seminar will be on October 7th from 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. British time. The title is Being a Startup in Japan, the Basics of Japanese Business Culture. And the speaker will be Mr. Odajima, who is a co-founder of Edge of, which is a global collaboration platform located in the heart of Tokyo, Shibuya. I know it's very early in the morning your time, but if you're interested, please join us. Okay, so lastly, let me summarize my short presentation by introducing how to make use of the Tokyo Metropolitan Government's service. So we will recommend that you contact us first to ask any questions you may have regarding establishing your business in Tokyo or in Japan. The contact address of BDCT is on this slide. BDCT can accept any kinds of inquiries, so please first email us at contactus@bdc-tokyo.org. Also, if you're a financial related company and wish to ask questions such as financial regulations in Japan, then please email at financial-desk@bdc-tokyo.org. The consultants will give you information about meeting on Zoom after a reservation is completed according to your inquiry. Also, for seminar information, please visit our website from this QR code or search Prospect Seminar, and you will find other seminar information updates. The registration form is available through this event page. Okay, so that's all for me. Thank you so much for your attention. Okay, so let me take over to Mr. Nick.
Thank you very much, Hannah and Steve. They were two really interesting presentations. Hannah, if you could stop sharing your screen,
Okay.
I would be. Yeah, thank you. I'll be grateful. Both those presentations were fascinating, and there's, I've gone away with quite a lot from that. And I think the most important thing is the saying that Steve put up about defining values are not price and profit, but relationship and trust. And that is so important from an international trade perspective in general, but it's a good business ethic. And for somebody, I have done a lot of business in Japan in the past with in the chemical industry, and I certainly agree with everything that was said, certainly from Steve's presentation. So thank you very much. Now we are running over a little bit of time, so I hope you don't mind. We do have a few questions that I would like to just pass over to you quickly. First of all, I just want to give you a little bit of word of warning. There was a gentleman called Bharat Udan who had put up several notices in the chat about creating a WhatsApp group. Now, I don't know who Bharat is. I did actually remove him from the webinar. But if anybody is going to go onto that WhatsApp chat, I would just advise you to be a bit cautious. So the first question that we've got, and we're just going to go through these very quickly, was from Jennifer Martin. Jennifer says that she runs a very small business in Scotland, and she knows that there is an interest for her products in Japan. However, it seems that she needs to have a Japanese import company in order to sell to Japanese companies. Is this usual? So, Steve, or anybody else who can answer that, Steve, would you like to try and answer that one?
Yes, certainly. More than happy to do that. And thank you for your question, Jennifer. In very simple terms, I would say yes. In general, the advice would be to work with a Japanese partner company that could import the products for you and hopefully do a lot more. You know, they could import and maybe be part of your sales and marketing and promotion channel as well. Great to know that you've got interest in your products. That's always a good sign. As I said earlier, just that little word of caution of select carefully when you're looking for that right import partner. Make sure you get the right one and do your homework on it. But that to me, you know, with the limited bit of information that you've given there, Jennifer, in your question, I would certainly say that looks like the best route. But feel free to ping us directly on Export to Japan, and we'll be happy to specifically jump into more detail with you about how we may be able to help you find that partner. More than happy to do that.
Okay, that's good. I hope that answers your question, Jennifer. I also have a comment from Sky Chemicals, and they're looking at exporting pallets of dangerous goods to Japan, and would like to have some advice on prices for this transportation, because they seem to be very, very high. I don't know if you've got any comments you can give. Feedback on that one, Steve?
Difficult without knowing the prices and things and knowing more detail. It's obviously it's hard to comment on whether they're inappropriately high or not. But what I would say, I think to that one for Sky Chemicals, I would just say again, we've got through Export to Japan, we have a number of companies that we can recommend that you can talk to about your logistics needs. So probably the best way is to try and get some comparative quotes from different providers, and that will give you the best idea of what the market rate is and whether the quotes that you've currently got is realistic or not. So again, please send us an inquiry directly on Export to Japan, and we'll be able to give you some advice on where you may be able to get some comparative quotes and advice on that. More than happy to do that.
Thank you very much. So look, time is cracking on, and one of the things that I picked up on Steve's presentation is that in Japan punctuality is key and very, very important. And that goes for arriving at meetings and ending meetings. We do have a few more questions, which we are going to get back to the individuals by email. But I am going to close this meeting now. We are 5 minutes past 10, which is overrun by 5 minutes. But I would like to thank very much Hannah, Steve, James, and Jack from the North East England Chamber of Commerce, and Yulia, who works with me in Sheffield. I know that Jack and Yulia and Sam from British Chambers of Commerce in Japan have worked very, very hard to get this this webinar together. We will be having another one, and I look forward to Steve's presentation about the free trade agreement, which and Steve, if you could send us details of that, we can distribute them.
I'm happy to do that.
I haven't asked if we can distribute your slides, Steve and Hannah, but if we can, perhaps you could let us have copies or let us know, and we shall happily do that. In the meantime, have a great day, everybody. Have a good evening for those listening from Japan, and thank you very much. And we look forward to the next one. Okay, bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.